Ihr Lieben, herzlich willkommen zu eurem Lieblingspodcast. Wir haben wieder einen ganz besonderen Gast. Diesmal wird es ein englischsprachiges Interview mit John Lee und hier kommt erstmal die englische Anmoderation für ihn. I just said that it's going to be an English-speaking interview today and here's your proper introduction. John Lee is the co-founder and CEO of Wealth Dragons Group PLC. He's also the founder of Wealth Dragons Online, which is set to become one of the largest e-learning platforms for business entrepreneurs across the globe. He has already shared the stage. You correct me if there's anything wrong I'm saying.
No.
He has already shared the stage with the biggest speakers in the world, like Bill Clinton, Alan Sugar, Richard Branson, Jack Welch, etc., etc. He is the author of the best-selling book Business Hacks, and today we're going to talk about his life, how he became a self-made millionaire, how he became an Instagram star with 1.5 million people following him, and how John Lee became how John Lee is today. So welcome and thank you so much for taking your time for this.
Tobias, thank you so much for having me on the show.
First of all, we have a common friend, Tobias Beck from Germany, who is actually the reason why I became a speaker, because he said, why don't you speak publicly?
That's amazing. I mean, he does so much great work, and that the passion and the love that he's giving back to people is just truly commendable. Love the work he's doing.
Very much. And you before we started the interview, you said your German is very well. So would we just take that out of the place? What's the German sentence you can say?
Wie heißt du?
Mein Name ist Tobias. All right, very well. So before we talk about business, which is very, very important, especially at these times, let's talk a little bit about how John Lee became John Lee. How you grew up, school. And when was the first time you decided you're going to become an entrepreneur?
How long do we have?
We have like 6 hours.
So I grew up in a very humble background. My parents were from Hong Kong. They originally, from there, they flew to the UK. They started their own Chinese takeaway. And I started as a Chinese, in the Chinese takeaway as a dishwasher. So but I knew that I didn't really get to spend much time with my parents. So I thought to myself, well, there must be a smarter way of earning income. So I decided to, started to get different jobs, working in, selling shoes and selling things on the internet in terms of like domain names. Mm-hmm. And then my parents said to me, well, why don't you get an education? I said, what do you mean? He said, well, if you go to school.
Very important in Asian culture, right? I had a Chinese girlfriend for many years. And it's unbelievably important compared to our culture, like the education part of it, right?
Yeah, and it was like either become a doctor, a solicitor, an accountant. And so for me, I'm not academically that bright. I wouldn't say I'm an intelligent guy either. I didn't do very well at school. So the only thing that I was okay at was drawing and animation. So I decided to go to animation school in a place called Hull. And I studied for 3 years, and then I got a job in the film industry. So then I started learning about animation and started learning about games design. And it was a good job. I mean, I was on a £60,000 salary, which is modest in London.
It's more than a dishwasher in a Chinese takeaway.
Oh, there you go. So, but then it got to a point where every day just felt like Groundhog Day. If anyone's listened to this and they've been to London before, it's very packed. There's a lot of people there. It's very stressful. Mm-hmm. So for me, I decided, okay, I've got to do something. And I got really good at my job. And I got so good at my job that my boss at the time got a bit intimidated and wanted to push me out of the company, which we eventually did. And I don't know if anyone can relate to this, but I was going to work every single day being fearful and being scared of what people would say. So I kind of, it wasn't a very good experience. So eventually I got kicked out of the company and got fired. And I remember walking out of that company with my box and with all my things in there, just thinking, shit, like, I'm never going to let anyone do that to me ever again. Like when my parents said to me, you got to go to school, get a job, they never tell you that someone can fire you. Right? They just never do. And so I started off, doing my own research. And then I got another job, but then as I got another job, I was doing my side hustle. Mm-hmm. So I said to myself, and I went to the internet and I typed in, how to make more money. And all these things came up later.
That's a good type on Google. How to make more money.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know what to do. So I just type it in. And so I remember there was this seminar that came up, and it was about property investing.
Uh-huh.
So I decided to, and this was around 2004, 2005.
How old were you?
I was around 22, 23 then. I'm 22, 23. Actually, maybe a little bit younger than that. But I remember just attending the seminar and just all these things started, they were saying things like, oh, you can make this money. And in my head, I was like, wait a minute, this sounds too good to be true. Like, if it was that easy, wouldn't everybody be doing it? And so and being Chinese, I'm very skeptical, And so then I started doing more research. And then again, I worked at this other job, and my friend said to me, John, you should really read this book. And so for my birthday, he got me this book called Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Kiyosaki.
Right. So then I read the book, and it talks about this concept of passive income. I'm like, wow, no one ever taught me you could make money from other things and from making passive forms of income. So one of the things I decided to do, I said, you know what, I'm just going to read this book. And I'm dyslexic, meaning I find it very hard to study. But when I read that book, I couldn't put it down. So then I decided to test this stuff out and really start going into it. So my mindset had to open. So I started attending more seminars. And there was one seminar that I attended that I had to pay £350 for, which I didn't have the money. So I remember in that book, it said, if you don't have the money, you have to go and find the money. There's never a lack of money. There's only a lack of creativity. Right. And so I decided to go to all my friends and family, ask for money. No one had the money.
How did they react when you went into personal development or human performance? How?
It was, so, for example, my uncle, I asked him, my uncle Chi, I said, hey, can I borrow £350? He said, what for? I said, I want to attend the seminar. I said, what's the seminar about? He said, yeah, I want to get rich from property. He said to me, John, it sounds like a scam. So
first, well, that helps, right?
Right. So I'm like, okay, you know what? And what I realized was that if you're going to borrow money from people, you have to tell them what's in it for them. So I decided to, borrow the money. And I said to him, look, for the first 2 deals that I buy, I'll give you 50% of those deals. And so that's how I got the money.
50% of the property.
50% of my first 2 deals that I would get. And, obviously he made a lot more money than £350 that he gave to me.
And you paid that one day?
Of course. I mean, it's
that's incredible.
Right. Because in my mind, I was like, well, listen, I got nothing to lose. But then after I learned this stuff, I'm like, shit, I got to give him I remember one of the first houses we bought, it was on the market for $125,000 that I bought for $90,000.
Wow.
Right? And that property is renting on every single month till this day. That house makes around £450 a month.
He's putting you on his nightly prayers, probably.
Yeah. I mean, now he's like, he's been making money for the last 10 years from that one property. And then there's another property that we had to sell. It was on the market for, we bought it for 200 and we sold it for 250,000.
That's the second person who lent you money, yeah?
No. It's from the same person.
Oh, so same person.
Those 2 houses. But here's the thing. And one of the things I said to myself is and after those deals came, he was like, oh, John, can we do more deals? I said, no. It's only the first 2, right? So it's interesting how when you start something, people tell you can't do it, you're not good enough. And then they eventually come to you and ask you for advice on how you did it. It's very bizarre.
May I ask you, when you attended the program, you just said before you're very Chinese, you're critical. And many people, when we talk about business seminars, they're like, yeah, that's just rah-rah, it all doesn't work. What did you do to get that part out of your mind? I mean, the surrounding is one thing that everybody's saying, better don't do it. But what did you do to go to the bank and ask for a loan for the first house?
Well, so here's the thing. I remember my girlfriend at the time, her name was Kerry, and I said to her, I want to do this property thing. And I remember when we were meant to sign our first loan for around 200,000, she was like, you do realize that you're going to be responsible for that? I said, yeah. And said, you do realize that if you don't rent the property out, that you're going to have to fund that and you can't afford to fund that. And I said, yes. And so it's interesting because people's risk appetites are different. And in my mind, I was like, well, I won't have to because someone's going to be paying the mortgage for me. But in everybody else's mind, because they're not educated, of course, they always look for the worst. And I think everything you do, whether it's property or business, there's always a risk. The question we have to ask ourselves is, how do we de-risk the risk? And that is through education.
Wow. How did you de-risk it then? And it's interesting that your ex-girlfriend had it in her mind, but you didn't have it in yours.
Well, because I had the right education. I mean, to start with, of course I did. There was a time where I had to sell my car because I need to get mentor. And I tell this story all the time. And my first mentor, his name was Ying Tan. And he said, if you want me to mentor you, the fee is £10,000. I'm like, £10,000? Do you know how long it takes to save £10,000 up? And when I told everybody what I was going to do, they said, oh, you're going to get ripped off. You're going to get a scam. Again, because people don't know what they didn't know. So whenever I'm learning something, I always say there's those three sides. There's always their side, there's your side, and there's the facts, right? And the facts is if I go and try it and I get guidance and it works, well, there's the facts. Right. So I think it's too many people like this, Tobias. It's like walking to a restaurant. Like I used to do this. I always used to eat the same food. My business partner used to say, oh, why don't you try this? And my mind is like, oh, I don't like it. And he said, well, how do you know? You never tried it. I'm like, you're right. It's the same, right? When people hear about these things, because it's not in their reality, anything that they don't understand, they'll delete.
Right. The mentor you got, it was obviously worth the 10,000.
Oh yeah. I mean, I tell you, I spent 2 days with him, and in 6 months I had purchased over 35 houses.
Wow.
Because he had a way, because one of the biggest things with real estate is that you need a lot of money, apparently. So that was one of my belief systems, but you don't need to have a lot of money. You just need to find the money. Right. And and so this is what we call that the belief transference, that you got to transfer what you believe to somebody else and challenge their belief systems. So for me, and he said, and one of the beliefs that he taught me was, John, if you find a deal, the money will find you. And I said, how does that work? He said, don't question me. Just go and find the deal and then the money will find you. And sure enough, it did. My first house that I found was in the market for 185,000. I bought it for 85,000, not with my money, with some money.
Would you underline the statement that coaches sometimes can put you in a time machine, because pretty much everything they have learned, he gave you in 2 days, where he probably needed 20 years to learn it.
Yeah.
So pretty much you're buying time, right? I mean, that's what I just figured out with coaches, because some of my friends, they said, you paid 15,000 for a seminar? Are you nuts? And I'm like, he's like the best in his industry. From where else should I learn it from?
Yeah, it's like, if you're going to have surgery, wouldn't you want to go to the best heart surgeon in the world? Like, you don't want the worst one, do you? And you don't want someone who's going to do it for free.
No, definitely not.
Right. So this is the same. And it pains me, Tobias, when people are constantly worried and they're penny pinching. They want to hold on to the money. Like right now, I'll give an example. Right now we're living in this whole lockdown period, the whole coronavirus thing, and all these businesses are going down because they want to hold on to the money. And my question is, well, guess what? If you hold on to that money, you're just buying time. That's it.
Yeah.
So
when is a better time to invest? Now, right?
Yeah. Interestingly enough, I made a lot of my money in 2008.
During the crisis?
Yes. And in Chinese, I always say this, and you may know this, there's a Chinese word called 危机. Have you heard of that before?
Yeah.
Crisis, right? And it's made
the 2 letters, right?
The letters. One of the letters means danger. The other letter means opportunity. So both letters put together spells crisis. Wow. So what that means is, in every crisis, there's always the opportunity. We have to see. So in 2008, what was the crisis? The housing crash, right? So people in their right mind would not go and buy properties, but me in the crazy mind going, you know what? I'm going to buy everything that people don't want. And you know what? The houses that were on the market for 200,000-300,000, I was picking them up for like 100, 200. I was getting like a 30% discount. So when the market recovered, guess what? Property prices move up again.
Of course. And it always will recover.
Yeah.
It just depends on the time. That's very interesting. So your family, your parents, when was the first time they said that makes sense what he does? Because I can imagine that from their perspective, it was a little odd even to think that big.
So here's the thing with Chinese people. You know, like Chinese people like to do something called dim sum. Dim sum is where they go out. Right? Yeah, dim sum, right?
Yeah.
So they like to go out, sit around a table, have dim sum, and talk about and boast about their kids. Oh, my son's a doctor. My daughter's in Harvard, and here's me, like a dropout. He got fired for his job. Actually, my parents still today really don't understand what I do. They just know that I make money. So. Now obviously I buy them nice things,
right.
I treat them,
Right.
and they just see that I'm a businessman.
Okay.
They don't quite understand
So they label you businessman, and it's okay. They're okay.
Yeah. Now it's okay. Before, when I told my mum, it's like, "Oh, son, you shouldn't do that. It's too risky." What do you mean it's too risky? How do you know? Yeah, but your dad told me. Well, how does dad know? Well, uncle told dad. Well, how does uncle know? Oh, he read it on the news.
That is so interesting. Well, actually, my parents just visited one of my shows after 20 years. I'm doing that.
Wow.
Yeah, they were part of the audience, but maybe sometimes it takes a while, right?
Yeah. I don't think my parents have still attended any of my conferences or keynotes ever. Still till today.
It will, because now they listen to that and they heard that my parents came and it meant a lot to me.
Yeah.
Actually, was interesting. The audience got up and gave them a standing ovation.
Wow.
Were like 1,500 people. And I said at the end, it means a lot to me because today my parents are here for the first time. And
amazing.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I do believe that we are still sons and daughters always, and we want our parents to be proud, right?
Oh, of course. Of course. I always say that Chinese people, we are emotionally constipated. They don't really show emotion. They don't give you love. They don't say, I love you. They don't we don't do hugs, things like that. So, now my daughter, I'm always hugging her and kissing her.
Yeah, we can make it better, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I attended a seminar where there were some Chinese students in the class, and everybody had to sing a childhood song. And there was this guy from China, and he sang a song. And then somebody translated the song. It's like the tiger gets you at night if you stand up from your bed. And we're like, that's a children's song?
Yeah, right.
And he said, yeah, in China it's like that. Yeah, incredible. All right. So then you started your real estate business.
Yep. So then I got into real estate for about 2 or 3 years. I made my first million at the age of 27.
Wow.
And I became financially free. And so okay, what do I do with this money? So then I started to explore different things. And this is how I got into doing keynotes all around the world. One time someone kept asking me, John, how do you invest in property? So I would go out for coffee, and I would just, it'll turn into like what was back then a coaching session.
Your first keynote.
Right? Yeah. I mean, I didn't know there were coaching sessions back then, but that person would tell somebody else, and they would come to me and ask me, could we go for coffee? And every day I'd be going for coffee. And so I that was called working hard. And what I found is I spent more time drinking coffee than actually working on my business. And so then I said, you know what, I'll just write a report or a guide. And then I'll just let people, when they come to me, I'll just give them the guide.
And you get the coffee voucher.
Well, not quite. I didn't even get the coffee voucher. I just did this to kind of save my time so I didn't have to go out and have coffee all the time.
Yeah.
So then I get a phone call about 2 weeks later from a guy called Steve Foley. And he said, John, I just read your report. Could you come do a talk at my event? I said, Steve, I'm not a speaker. And he said, well, just come along and bring your report and you can just read it. I said, okay, sounds pretty easy. And I show up there and imagine a huge room with 6 people in it. 6 people. So I show up and literally all I'm doing is I'm taking this report and I'm starting to read. And I thought that was the worst thing ever. I'm never going to do that again. And so I get another phone call. You
literally read that paper and you left the
stage? I literally held it. Like in a school play, like you would hold it. I just read it. No, I didn't have any public speaking skills or anything back then. So about 3 months later, I get another phone call from a guy called Just Want Rai who ran a networking event. And he said, John, I heard you spoke at Steve's event. Would you come speak at my event? I'm like, no, the last one wasn't so bad. It's really bad. He said, look, this is more of a networking event. It's not more of a speech. Like there's going to be people there as well doing talks. I said, fine, I'll come along. And when I showed up, the car park was full. In my mind, I'm like, oh God, there's going to be a wedding on here or something. So I walk into the reception and I say, hi, my name is John Lee. I'm the keynote speaker for tonight. Could you tell me where the event is? Yeah, it's just through there. I said, where the wedding is? He said, no. That's the event. My face went, pong.
Oh my God. But it's interesting that you said I'm the keynote speaker. I'm the one who reads the note.
Yeah, right. Keynote. So, so I said to Just, I said, you didn't tell me there's all these people here. Oh, he said, John, yeah, don't worry, there's only 250 people here. I went, why? And so again, this is how he introduces me. He said, oh, we have a very special speaker today. He's come all the way like I've flown overseas to go there. Now he's the author. I'm like, what? I'm not an author.
Of the note.
Author. The notes, right? Because he got a copy of my report and I put authored by John Lee. And so everyone's like really excited, like, oh, please give John Lee a massive round of applause. I'm walking on, my heart's like beating like this. It's like, doom.
Without any public speaking skills.
No public speaking skills. So I thought, I didn't know what to do. So I just took out my report and I just started reading. And that's literally all I did. And so.
And you were like, how did I do?
I mean, halfway through, I kind of got used to it because I'd already done it once before and I already knew the content. But here's the interesting thing that happened. At the end of it, a guy walked up to me and he said, oh, John, that was fascinating. I loved your talk. By the way, where can I buy a copy of your report? Like, and then how much is your report? I'm like, no one ever asked me that question before. I'm like, I don't know. Everything on the internet's got a 7 on there. I said, I don't know, £47. The guy takes his wallet out, gives me £50 and said, keep the change.
No.
Yes. And that's when I had one of those moments. That's when I realized that what's in my brain, someone values more than I do. And so I quickly went home
and I think everybody knows something that somebody else doesn't, right?
Right. But they give it away for free. So I remember going home and speaking to my business partner and I said, bro, do you know like that report that we were giving away for free? Someone just bought and paid money for it. He said, no. I said, here's the money. And I had this really cool idea. I said, why don't we just write a proper book and make it nice if you're going to pay money for it? And so he said, that's the worst idea I ever heard. I said, why? He said, well, first of all, I'm not a writer. And second of all, you're dyslexic. I'm like, okay. So I said, all right, you write half of the book, I'll write half of the book, and then we'll just copy and paste it together. And you know what happened? So after 6 months, we wrote this book and we just copy and pasted it together. The first half of the book was just like perfectly grammatically correct. Mm-hmm. The second half of the book was like written by a 5-year-old, which was me. And, I'll never forget this.
The publisher's face.
Right? I'll never forget this. I got all these business cards. So I picked up all these business cards. You go to events, you get all these business people give you cards. And so I decided to put all these cards into an Excel sheet. And do you know, I got a PayPal link for £47. I wrote an email saying, hey, if you love my talk, we've written a whole book on property here. Check it out. Click here to buy. I sent that email at 12 o'clock at night. I woke up in the morning at 7:30. And do you know, when I opened my laptop, I clicked send and receive. It started downloading hundreds of emails. I'm like, oh, great, spam complaints. Do you know what happened? We'd sold 369 copies in 7.5 hours. We made £17,500 whilst we were sleeping.
Without any advertisement?
No, it's just from the business cards. I just put the business cards into a Excel sheet and just copy.
Why do you think that worked? Because the content was so good? I mean, people didn't even know the content, obviously.
No. I mean, so there's a few things. I mean, now I know why it worked, but back then I had no idea. So in any business, there's always there's the conditions of the market, there's the trends of the market, and there's also what like the timing. Mm-hmm. So trends, timing, and so the timing was perfect because what happened? Housing crash. So people wanted to know how to invest. The trend was that, okay, everyone's offloading their properties right now. Right. And so those two things for me, it worked perfectly well. And, I can tell you that the conditions of the market was perfect because when 2008 came, because it was around that 2008, 2009, around that time, the conditions were that people could no longer get money from the banks. Right. So my book taught people how to buy houses without using any of your own money. And so that's why, and that's how our training company started. That's how Wealth Dragon started, right? Because people would be calling our office saying, "Hey, John, I just read your book. I bought your book. It's amazing. Do you do any coaching or mentoring?" I'm like, "No, I don't, but come to my office.
Mm.
So we're like,
was full.
I tell you, the first time we had like 12 people show up. I said, where do you guys travel from? Oh, we just traveled 3.5 hours to be here. I'm like, what? So then as we started doing this, people started referring people. It went from 12 people to 50 people. So we'd have to go out of our offices now. We'd have to pay money for a hotel. And then we go from 50 people to 100 to 200, 100 to 500, 500 to 1,000. Last year, we ran 117 events last year.
Unbelievable.
Just in the UK.
When was the moment when you consciously realized that that's getting big? Because before you said you were surprised yourself that people put the note. When was the moment when you realized that really works also for them?
Yeah, the moment I realized was that the moment we had to charge because we'd have to hire the hotel, we'd have to get everybody to, like 200 tea and coffees add up to a lot of money, right? And then we would speak on stage with no mic. So then people say, "Oh, John, I can't hear you," because when it's like 20 or 30 people, you can talk.
Okay, yeah.
And then we had to hire an AV equipment, and then we're like, "Okay, we've got 200 people showing up. How much is it?" And then the bill for AV was like £15,000. I'm like, "Are you kidding me for just some microphones?" So then that's why we had to start charging money. And I remember the first time we sent an email out, I could not believe it. Like I said, "Okay, we're running this event, but we just want to cover our cost. The cost to run this event was £15,000. And, all you got to do is, the nominal fee is like £200. We sent it out and we sold out in less than an hour.
It's unbelievable.
I'm like, all these like ding, 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 all these payments. I was like, wow.
Right.
And then the more events we started to do, the more people kept asking me, "John, can you mentor me? Can you coach me?" And so I thought, sure. So then I started doing a lot of coaching for free, right? So I sit down with people, and these coachings used to last like half a day, an hour. I'm like, shit, I'm getting back into that whole thing again, going for coffee, but it's even worse.
It's just more people.
It's just more people and more. And I'd be on the phone like till midnight with people messaging me and emailing me. I'm like, this is insane. And then it got to a point where I thought, I just wanted people to just stop messaging me. So I just, like, next time people came to me and said, "John, do you offer mentoring?" I said, "I do, but I charge." And, back then I just said to myself, I don't really want to do this coaching. It's taking up too much time. So let me put people off, me coaching them. So they said, "Sure, how much is it?" I said, "Yeah, I charge £1,000 an hour." Right? No, actually, no, back then it was a day, £1,000 a day back then. And then the guy said, "Sure, do you take Visa?" I'm like,
so it didn't matter what you did, people were showing up.
It didn't matter what I did. And then I kept increasing the price. So now my fees, I do coaching and mentoring with a lot of celebrities, CEOs of companies. I charge £5,000 an hour now. Back then, it almost didn't matter what I charged, because back then people were making so much money because, again, the timing was right, the trend was right, and the conditions were right. Right. So people had they had a 3-year opportunity in the UK to buy as many properties as possible and using a very unique way of purchasing it. Now they stopped that, so they can't do that anymore.
So this window of opportunity was with real estate. Was there a moment where you realized that the same pattern also works for other businesses?
Yeah. So it worked for live events. So again, we run a lot of live events. And what we thought was, like, the events kind of cover themselves. So all the costs that would go into marketing, putting the events, they would cover themselves. And, sometimes they make a healthy profit. But what we found is, like, from having events, there'll be other business opportunities. Like, for example, my business partner is buying hotels now at like 400 million. So he's now found people from events who he can partner with. Right now, one of the things I do is, there's companies that I'm trying to look for their supplements. But I normally have supplements on my desk. But now, like, I find other business opportunities because, I'm now able to become an investor in companies, which means my events finds me a lot of businesses to invest in. When we took our company public, we were able to raise millions and millions of pounds directly from our events platform. And that was another opportunity. So these opportunities, they come and they go. And that's why I will say to people that, success is when preparation meets the opportunity.
What do you look in with people and businesses before you invest even one pound? What's important for you?
Well, it's not always money that I invest. Sometimes it's my expertise. So it's either money, my expertise, or both.
Okay.
Depending on where the business is.
So expertise would mean you would get a share volume X, Y for your expertise that you put in the company. Yeah.
Right. So, for example, there's a company that I work with in Singapore. They do juicing. I took their business from 300,000 to 1.5 million in a year.
Wow.
Right. Just by using some of the marketing trends, branding, marketing, and sales, and systemization in operations.
Yeah.
I was able to see that, and now I take a sizable stake in that company, but I don't put any money into it because my money is equity.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah, whereas with events companies, like if I'm going to invest into an events company, maybe I'll invest in the marketing of that event, for example.
So what I do here, though, is that blueprint that once you understand how success works, it's pretty much it's a blueprint for other businesses as well. I mean, juicing has nothing to do with real estate or business, but it pretty much works the same.
Business is so simple. I think just people complicate it. And I think the way I do it is very different. Because I use the power of the internet, I'm always looking for the audience first, right? This is, again, when we come full circle back to why it worked, one of the reasons why that launch worked is because, guess what? I already had the audience, right? I already had the audience. And so if I already have the audience and I go to that audience and I offer that audience that's going to solve one of their biggest problems, I get paid to do it.
Right.
And so all I'm doing right now is I'm looking for audiences. Like so you asked me what's one of the criteria is when someone comes to me and say, John, can you be an investor in my company? Okay, one, is there a big need in your industry right now?
Right.
Like, is there a big need for it? Are the people begging you, no matter what price it's like cigarettes, isn't it? No matter how much you charge for cigarettes or alcohol, people will still buy.
Right.
Right.
So just for me to understand the juicing in the juicing business, for example, the audience, pretty much the client, the customer is there, yes, but how do you get them to buy the juice?
Okay, so that's through strategy. So there's always three things. Number one is I'm always looking at strategy and tactics. Strategy is the big picture. Tactics is the how to get there.
Okay.
Right. So for example, people that want to juice, we found that the people that want to lose weight without doing any work. Right.
That's the pain point.
Right. It is the pain point.
Like, you have to find the pain point. Yeah.
I can see you're in good shape. You must exercise.
Yeah.
I'm in okay shape. I exercise every day.
Yeah.
But I still juice.
Yeah. Me too.
So it's finding out the market that you want. For example, I just invested £3 million into a software that will allow people to create, like, coaches, speakers, authors, creators, to create a membership site in a few clicks so they can make recurring income. Mm-hmm. Right. And so
it would be interesting for me as well. We have a large audience, but we don't have a membership side. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you where the pain is for that. We found that speakers are very charismatic. They're very, presentable, like yourself. You're very charismatic. You've got great energy. But not many speakers are technical.
That's true. I'm not technical at all.
Not technical, like if you're asking about coding and how do you code C+ this and that and JavaScript this and that, they have no idea how to do it. That's why I created this software that will allow anybody with no technical ability to, because you want to be good at, you would just want to focus on what you're good at, which is delivery and content. Right. You don't want to deal with all the nonsense of technology.
Right.
That's what I found.
John is very clever because he said, could you please, before we start the recording here, could you please give me the host key so I can also record? And I was like, how does that work? Right? Yeah, but it's true. Yeah, it's true. So pretty much you find the niche and the pain point and you go as a business. Yeah.
Got to find the audience first.
Oh, audience first. Yeah.
Always find the audience first. So is there an audience? Are they already paying money for the problems that you're going to be solving? Right.
So trainers, speakers, coaches, authors. Yes, it's the audience.
Yeah.
They're paying a shitload of money for people helping them with this stuff.
Yeah.
And you find an automatization of it. There we go.
Right. And here's the thing. So I learned this from Steve Jobs. Like when he created the iPod, the reason why it took off so well is because he designed it as though it was for him. Like I'm like you, I'm a speaker, right? So, that's another one of my businesses. I do a lot of keynotes flying around the world. But I thought to myself, now I have a baby daughter and You know, I'm on the road like 6 months, 7, 8 months a year. You know, flying to, I just did a tour in Australia. I just flew back, and it's like a 23-hour flight. I'm like, man, like if I'm a speaker right now and that was my only income, like what would I want to have happen? So I thought to myself, well, why don't every time I do a keynote speech, I record it and I just put that into a membership site that people can just pay to access.
Clever.
Right? Yeah. Why don't every interview I do like this, I just put it in there, summarize it, and so people can access it.
Clever. Yeah.
Right? Why not every time I do a Facebook Live or an Instagram Live, instead of reposting it back onto Instagram and Facebook, I just download it, put it into the membership site.
Very clever. And it's another group. That's the interesting part, is it's another group of people, because they want to have the privilege of listening to it first or having it nicely done, then people listening to it on Instagram. Is that correct, that it's all different target groups for each different social media channel?
Yeah, absolutely. And also as well, you know, for example, I did a search on my, you know, my subscriptions, and there's been a subscription that I've been paying for the last 10 years. And it's for a phone that I don't no longer have. I kept it running, and it was and it was like $8.99 or something like that. And I'm like, I can't. And I think to myself, why haven't I canceled this? Because it's too much hassle to cancel. Like $8, like it's not even worth my time calling and canceling it. Right. So then I thought to myself, why don't let's say right now you have 1,500 people in your seminar. Imagine every time you run one of those 1,500, if I do a stat here, 1,500, you charge $8.99, right? That's 13,485 recurring per month. If you, how many times do you do that a year?
Yeah, about 200.
200 times.
Yeah, at least.
Times 200, that's 2.6 million passive.
Yeah. All right. We can finish that interview. I have my new business. Thank you so much, Mr. Lee. Yeah, but it's true. Yeah. Actually, I had that today because one of the speaking gigs got canceled, and I have a flight that was, I think, 1:49, and it said wait time is 1 hour, 20 minutes. And I'm like, hell no. No. I just don't rebook the flight. I just leave it like it is, right?
Right. You see? So our time has become more precious. And what we found is this thing called price elasticity, meaning that there'll be a price where people just don't care, like $10 a month. Like, really, I mean, maybe some people, oh yeah, but John, it's okay for you're rich, you got wealth, and maybe it's not big enough, you know, big amount for you, but it's for other people. I get it. But I just think sometimes there are small amounts which are like under the radar that don't hurt you.
Right. I mean, that's how Starbucks lives, and other places. People go there every day, pay $4.99, and they look at if you look at it over the year, they spend a car on coffee. Right? I mean, it's crazy, but it's true. Yeah, we don't think about it. The book you wrote that got endorsed by Richard Purdett, Kiyosaki. There it is. Business Hack. Do you know if we can purchase it in Germany on Amazon or any other?
Yeah, I mean, they've got Audible. So I guess you can go to Audible, and they might have it in different languages. Great. So that's the audio version. But if you go to Amazon, just type in Business Hack. They can, you know, purchase a copy there.
What would be some of your products that could also very well fit for the German market? I mean, because if we now we will put 100,000 people on your Instagram, but if you have 1.5 million, you don't even see it, right? But is there anything that you could tell to the German audience that might be interesting of your online courses or?
Yeah, I mean, I've got, I mean, there's lots of things out there. I've got a website called johnleeproducts.com. So John Lee Products has access to all of my online training programs. If people would like to start their own membership site, I'm happy to give your audience a free trial so they can get used to it. If they go to membylaunch.com, that's MEMBBY launch.com.
We'll put it in the show notes. We have to put that in one email because I can't write that fast.
So membylaunch.com, they can go there as well. But I've got a lot of things out there that for free. I mean, I put a lot of free content. If you go to YouTube, just type in John Lee.
I did that last night. There's loads of stuff and big audiences. My God.
Yeah. I mean, I guess my YouTube channel has probably the most in-depth content. So that's where I filter a lot of people. So a good social media strategy. So I start on Facebook, where I got 2.2 million people, and I drive them to Instagram. So Instagram, the correction is actually 1.3 million, not 1.5 million.
I'm sorry.
So that's okay.
After this podcast, it's 1.5 million.
Well, yeah, probably, yes. So I go from Facebook, I drive them from Facebook to Instagram, and I drive them from Instagram to YouTube. So it's a filtering process. So by the time they get to YouTube, that's my highest quality audience.
Yeah.
So that's why I put the best content on there.
Okay, got it. So why do you do that? Get them from Facebook to Instagram to YouTube, because, and not from the platform to your whatever website or something.
Because what I find, well, first of all, it's called a viral marketing strategy. So what we do is each platform has its own virality factor, right? So if I can get you onto Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, I hit you in all three platforms, and TikTok and Google and retargeting. But then
do TikTok as well?
Oh yeah, I mean, we spend millions of dollars online, using Facebook ads, Google ads. I have a whole train. In fact, I actually, before the whole tour was postponed, that's what my tour was. I was flying, doing 3-day training programs on how to actually start an online business using social media, build a brand, and turn your passion into a profit, and also grow your business if you have a business. Wow. So the whole idea of paid marketing, and now it's cheap because no one's spending money on marketing because all the businesses are going out of business. So what the idea is, you put $1 in, you get $10 out, right? That's what you want to do. That's the goal, to 10x your spend.
That's a good idea. Yeah. We talked a little bit about business hacks and business opportunities. Is there anything that is in your radar right now where you think that could become really interesting? Maybe something you haven't done before.
Yeah, I mean, so I've started to notice this. I always say that the new currency is data. So there are 3 types of data points we want to hit. The first data point is a list. So I built a list of 278,000 people on my database right now, right? So why is this important? Because when you do, like, for example, if I want to sell a book, I just like the business cards idea, instead of having just 800 business cards, I've got 278,000 people I can reach.
Put something in and you will get
guaranteed. Guaranteed. It's a guarantee. If you have a list and you offer as long as you're not doing this all the time, you give value first, you add value to people's lives. Guaranteed, people will always buy something from your list, always.
Yeah.
Right. So the first thing is build your list. Now, the second thing is build your audience. So, for example, combined on social media and all my different pages, I have around 5 million people that follow me across all different pages. And so with that now I've spent the last 3.5 years building that.
Right.
I'm just putting content every single day. I mean, I just film content and I just put it out there. I don't care if it gets 1 view or 10 views. In fact, I just checked, and Tobias, that one video that I put out 9 years ago, today has 92,000 views.
Wow.
But when I put it out back then, it only got 100 views.
Right. Over time, yeah.
So this is what we call digital assets. It's free, right? So we've got to put a lot of digital assets out there.
And actually, that's what I tell. I do train a lot of trainers on how to become public speakers. And I tell them the biggest mismatch in their head is that they don't put out the best content. And I always tell them, if you put out the best content, clients, companies will call you and they want exactly that. Because so many people want to keep the best for last. And I personally think it doesn't make sense.
And you're so right there. I completely agree with that. And it forces you to upskill yourself.
Right.
If you've just given your best free content away, that means you've got to learn something else.
Right.
And entrepreneurs, because we're always doing this, we get into that business of learning it. So what happens is we always upskill ourselves. So second is the audience. And the last one is community. So this is something I wish I did 10 years ago. I started a community. This whole thing, #stay-at-home, right?
Yes.
So I kind of the trend, right? We talk about the trend. So I rode off the trend and I created a community called stayathome.onlinebusiness.com. Right? So people went to that URL. And I had 7,000 people join in 5 days.
Wow.
It was insane. And I wish I would have done that 10 years ago. Yeah,
community is the key. I have community meetings in 45 different cities in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, where people it's like, I would say probably like 30,000-40,000 people, but they're coming not all together. It's 10, it's 20, it's 100, but they just help each other in business, and it's just great to see people grow.
Yes.
Right? When you look back to your career of all these years you did right now, was there anything that really didn't work that you kind of like, okay, that was a stone I had to push away? Because it sounds like it all grew very fast, very big, and everything worked out. And I think the little danger for many young entrepreneurs is they're seeing people who are very successful and they see it all worked out. Was there something that didn't work out?
No. Recently I've been testing a lot of stuff, and I'll tell you what didn't work.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
But it was so funny. No, everything.
I'm trying to think like what didn't work. I mean, I think the reason why it's always worked, everything I've always done has worked, is because I've always found the audience first.
Okay.
And I think, and that's a mistake I made on my last bit. So we actually launched a online platform as well, which was kind of more of an education platform. It's called Wealth Dragons Online. We actually created an app, which I think was pretty cool. Mm-hmm. So we decided to take all the best speakers in the world and we decided to put them into one place. So we created this little app, and people can go and download it and check this out. Mm-hmm. And you can come here, and there are, lots of, entrepreneurs. We have Vincent Wong.
It's like Netflix a little bit.
Yeah, it's basically the Netflix for self-development.
Yeah.
But it didn't work. Right? It did. I mean, we got 47,000 people on there right now. Yeah. So I wanted millions of people on there.
Right.
So, it still did all right, and it still, made money. But what we found was that if you were trying to create $1 million company, you don't need to go through many pivots. But my goal right now is to take my company to $1 billion valuation. And for that to happen, you need to think at a different level. Right. So we had to pivot 3 times. So the first pivot was, let's create this platform and let's charge $10 a month for all the content, right? So it kind of flopped because even though because I was like, why won't people pay money for this? Because we were trying to compare it to Netflix. So what I found was that people will pay for entertainment. Yeah. They won't pay necessarily if I have a choice of sitting there and watching Mission Impossible versus, how to do a Facebook ads, I'm always going to watch Mission Impossible.
Right.
People want entertainment. So that's one of the reasons why it flopped a little bit. So then we had to pivot. So the pivot was, okay, then instead of making it open source, let's just make it individual. Let's make it a marketplace. So then we went to every single speaker and said, how would you like to make money? So everyone's like, yeah, I want to make money. And so what we found is we managed to get all the speakers, like really big names. If I had to tell you the names, and you go on the platform, you can see all these big names on there. And for them to go and sell their courses on there. Mm-hmm. And again, it didn't work. Why? Because the speakers saw it as a marketplace and therefore did not want to promote the platform. Because they go, well, I'm like, if you teach public speaking, well, this other speakers on there teach public speaking.
Right. And you don't have your audience first thing, right?
Right. So then now we pivoted for the 3rd time. So this is the thing that's going to be launching, which is memby.com, which is the membership software. So we went back and we found what was the pain. The pain was, and the problem was that, okay, you don't want to promote the platform because other people are going to see, your customers are going to see other people, your competitors, so to speak. So what we did, we took that platform, we separated the software. So now it's a standalone. So, you will have your own membership site where you collect 100% of the money and you keep 100% of it.
You're now selling the shovel, not the gold.
You got it, man. You got it. And there's an audience there.
Yeah, I would buy it. Right. I mean, I had a company in India programming things for me, which I should have never opened because, the product was always crap. Right. And, like having something that I know already it works, I would buy it, of course. Yeah. I don't have to program it by myself.
Right. And it's standalone. It's got your own branding on there. So you're not, and now you will promote it because
you got your first German speaker, and there are many German speakers.
Yeah, well, there are lots.
And you know what I just learned? That's very interesting. And I always have one question that I ask for me in the podcast. Like the rest was all for the audience. It's millions of people listening. But there's this one question I always keep. So here it is. In Germany, we are very privileged in one thing. We have an audience that speaks German and only listens to German-speaking speakers, which is very interesting because I went to the biggest speaking association in the US. It was in Denver. And I was like, oh my God, are they good? there are speakers they're like rock stars, you know, and I'm like, if that would be my competition, I probably should just close my German business. Well, here's the question. Do you think that it will stay that way, that the countries and cultures will have their own, let me say, human performance industry, or is that going to mingle more and more?
I think now it's completely different. If you'd asked me that question 10 years ago, I would have said yes. Each market adapts. But actually, remember what we talk about, Weiji crisis, what's happening right now.
Right.
So the crisis is bringing everybody together. Everyone. Like, for example, I can very easily take this podcast, put it into a software, and it will translate it all into German for me.
Okay, I didn't even know
that. In less than 3 minutes.
Right. I didn't know that software exists.
Of course it does. I I tell you, it's called Veed.io, Veed.io. So you can take that piece of software and it'll translate everything and put subtitles on them. And now I can run an ad. Right. I can go to Fiverr. I can say, right, I'll create a 1-second ad saying, hey, by the way, if you love to learn how to, get a better mindset, then, listen to Tobias. He's got an amazing podcast. And what I could do is I could run that ad, transcribe my dub, like the Kung Fu movies.
Yes.
Now I'm speaking German.
Yes.
Right. And it'll be perfect. Like, shit, John Lee speaks German. No, I don't.
Yeah.
Right? It'll be dubbed that way. That's what Netflix are doing. Netflix are going to China.
True. It's true. Europe, everywhere. Yeah.
All the films, and they're dubbing it. That's how they're creating content.
Right. Well, that will do with me what you just said before. I just have to become better, right?
Look, at the end of the day, we if we stay where if we're not always innovating, we're left behind.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree.
We always strive. Always.
I agree. I learned a lot. And before we finish, is there anything we can do for you here in Germany on the German market?
No, just, anything that Tobias shares, please share it with everybody. I think the message that you are giving out there in your country and really making a big impact, both with you and Thaddeus, what you guys are doing is it's amazing to see what I call heart-centered entrepreneurs. It's not just about making money. It's about, like for me, if I didn't get paid to do this, I still do it. And I still do. That's why I put out hundreds and thousands of hours worth of free content that people don't have to pay for.
Yeah.
People want to pay for the coaching stuff I do. And that's what I love about what you're doing. And that's why you have grown the audience that you have. And, I would say make a fortune and make a difference.
Thank you so much. Last, at the end, I always ask some quick fire questions and you just answer. Money is?
The root of all happiness.
Really? I've never heard that answer. Okay, cool. I sometimes heard it's the root of all evil, but you just...
Because, look, and I'll let me give some context behind that.
Yeah.
If you're sad right now and you've got millions of dollars in the bank account versus not having millions of dollars in the bank account, do you know what makes you so happy is contribution. The reason why I want my company to be $1 billion company is because I want that money to be able to spread this message to billions of people around the planet, and that makes me happy.
Got it.
That's why I say it's the root of all happiness.
The sentence that changed my life was?
Education and being the best version of me.
The best book I ever read?
Steve Jobs' autobiography.
That came fast. Yeah. And last but not least, the most beautiful place I've ever been to?
Lausanne in Switzerland.
Lausanne in Switzerland.
Yes.
Well, thank you very, very much for taking your time for this podcast. And everybody who just heard all this, by the way, it's also being broadcasted at Lufthansa and Eurowings. So if you are in a German plane, you might hear yourself. And please go to his Instagram. He won't even notice. He has that many followers. He won't even notice. But
I will notice. By the way, if you caught this episode, then just tag me. So because if you tag someone, if you do @JohnLeeOfficial, I'll be able to see that comment. Otherwise, it'll get lost and everything else. So if anyone's heard this and they got a lot of value, send me a message. Tag me in it, and I'll be able to reply.
Great, thank you so much. And I'll just switch into German for one sentence. Wie auch immer, wenn euch diese Folge wie immer gefallen hat, seid so lieb, gebt uns eine Bewertung bei iTunes und ich sage ganz, ganz herzlich Dankeschön für diese Folge.